afternoon to all the members. Can I actually then ask that we fly to the agenda, please, Honorable Secretariat?
Chair Margot will flag the agenda for us, Chair.
Okay. Honorable members, can we actually then look at the agenda? I'm sure the adoption part. I haven't actually checked. We'll check the apologies once we have looked at the agenda, Andre, before we proceed. The
Yes,
formal
Chair.
consideration, it's actually a revised budget vote. And there is actually also the committee business, which is NLC decision and minutes. Obviously, because yesterday we will actually receive the legal opinion. So I think that's why we're actually suggesting that. So I think those are the main items on the agenda. Can we scroll down? It's just maybe closure at the bottom. Yes, concluding remark and the closure. Can we then actually ask members to actually respond to the agenda, honorable members?
Chair.
Mrs. Hermans, Chair.
Hermans.
Chair, as I rise to propose the adoption of the agenda, I omitted to submit an apology for Honorable Mantashe. She is caught up at the doctor's. She thought she would be out earlier. So there's an apology for her. Thank you.
Okay. So I think on the agenda item, I'm sure we'll move, Honorable Hermans, that we proceed as suggested. And then I'm sure that item is the one we're looking at next.
She thought she would be.
Chair, do we have a seconder for the adoption of the agenda, Chair?
Okay. Okay. So let's get a seconder.
Item. Yes, Chairperson.
We'll move, Honorable okay, that's
what
what
Chair.
we proceed as. Thank you very much.
I second.
And then I'm sure that item let's actually then check if ever there's an objection.
Chair, do we have a seconder for the adoption of the
If
agenda?
none, can we then proceed to the next item? We have received an apology. I'm sure Secretary can support that.
Chair, just to note, just Mr. Cuthbert indicated that because of possible power sharing, he may be cut off during the meeting. So I just want to alert the committee that may happen.
Let's actually we're aware of most places where there is actually that. Yeah. Thank you very much. Can we actually then take the next item on the agenda? Secretariat.
Chair, it's the consideration of the formal consideration of the revised budget of support, Chair. If Margot can just flag that, Chair, we have distributed it to all members, Chair. In yesterday's meeting, Chair, Mr. Cuthbert raised, not Mr. Cuthbert, Mr. McPherson highlighted an issue, and I may be able just a question about the legislation that not anticipated there was no response to his question, and we asked DTI to submit that response, Chair. So I don't know if Margaret just wants to highlight that's the only addition to the report, Chair. Highlighted an issue, and I may be able just
okay.
A question.
Let's actually then have that flighted. Take us through, Secretariat, so that at least we can speak to that issue. If ever there are comments, we can pick up on those.
Yeah, this is the status of legislation. Mr. McPherson asked the AP refers to development of or review of legislation on companies, liquor and gambling, and the committee inquired what the status of these laws are and when are they expected to be tabled for parliamentary consideration. The DTIC responded that the Companies Amendment Bill had recently been completed. The NEDLAC process, Chair. The bill was in process of being tabled in Cabinet for adoption and thereafter will be introduced to Parliament. Possible introduction into Parliament will be in the fourth quarter of this financial year. With respect to the Liquor Amendment Bill, Chair, the bill is in the process of being tabled in Cabinet for adoption before it's introduced to Parliament. The DTIC is also indicating they are reviewing policy issues and ensuring that the recent developments in liquor industry as well as public interest issues were taken into consideration. The bill, if Mark can just move up, Chair, I can't. Margaret, if you could, yeah. During this, could potentially also be introduced during this financial year. With respect to the National Gambling Amendment Bill, Chair, the bill is currently in the National Council of Provinces. The DTIC has briefed the Select Committee, and the committee is in the process of coordinating the final mandates to conclude the consideration of the bill. That is the response of the DTIC to the question raised, Chair.
Okay. Thank you very much, Andre. Maybe we actually can just check because we're looking at a consideration of the report relating to the revised budget vote as we have before us. So I think we're actually able to look at what we have today. Unless there are comments from members on the report, we can actually then check if ever there are any issues relating to the conclusions of the report and recommendation. So in terms of the actual body of the report, unless there are comments, can we actually get those comments from members with this update that we've just received?
Ms. Yaku, Chair.
From members, Honorable Yaku.
Thank you, Chair. Mine is to ask if this is a proper time or if this is the time now to say whether we agree with the report or not before I proceed.
Okay, so I think at this stage, we wanted just to be sure if issues covered on the report will need any engagement or discussion yet. And then maybe decision on the report will be the next point we take. I just wanted just to check out. Yeah.
Okay, then when is the time to comment on the report, then you can note me, Chair, please.
Okay, so I think can we actually then, Secretariat, I'm sure in terms of procedure, it will be important that we look at that issue of the conclusions, having made that addition. Honorable McPherson, I'm not sure if ever there's any comment on your side. So if not, what we will actually then do, can we actually move to the recommendation, the conclusions, I mean, and recommendation, and then maybe check from members if ever there's anyone who would like to raise an issue on those. And if not, then we will actually look at the adoption of the report by the committee. If there are any further comments on the conclusions, there were no additional ones which were sent in, Secretariat.
Chair, no additional request for conclusions was submitted or recommendation, Chair. So the report as before the committees is what we have received, Chair.
Okay. So I think maybe we'll actually may have to move to the
Chair,
next.
I'm just I see Mr. Thring wants to comment, Chair.
Oh, Honorable Thring. Honorable Thring, floor is yours.
Chair, I just wanted to find out, as Honorable Yako indicated, are we now moving on to the conclusions and the recommendations?
Yes, Honorable Thring.
All right, so I'm not sure if you wanted to, because I think she wanted to comment first, but if you want me to continue, it's fine.
No, I wanted just to check on your point, you want to get to that issue. So I'm sure we can ask Yako first, and then Mr. Thring can follow afterwards, Honorable Thring. So let's get Yako on the conclusion and recommendation. Honorable
sorry,
Yako.
Chair, I think we're missing each other because there's a part where you're going to get to the adoption of the report. So I think that's where maybe we will comment, and we're not quite there yet.
Yeah.
Okay. So Honorable Thring, on recommendation and conclusion, you can make your point. Honorable Thring.
Chair, I just have a challenge with, I'm looking at item, I think it's the conclusion 5.6. It speaks to preserving and protecting the industrial base is of paramount importance for the committee. Therefore, the committee supports the initiative of a centralized approach to the development of SEZs. Now, Chair, I can't support that. And the reason why I can't support that is because of our policy of a subsidiarity approach rather than a centralized approach. So I just wanted to note that when we're coming to the adoption or the approval of those recommendations on 5.6, we will not be able to. I will not be able to support that, Chair. Thank you.
Okay, let's actually note that. Can we then actually check? Yeah, then we can actually pick up in terms of adoption. I think Honorable Train, you have actually raised that point. Can we actually go back to the space, Honorable Yako? Because one is actually then say, can we look at the adoption and actually take a view? Yako, floor is yours.
Chair?
Yes, Andre?
If I may, Chair, just in terms of process, if we are looking at adoption, someone needs to move the report to be adopted, Chair, and second that. And I think then Ms. Yako would want to express a view, if I'm correct, Ms. Yako. Yeah. Okay. So we need to have a mover and a seconder, and I think then Ms. Hermans wants to raise the hand, Chair.
Okay. Honorable Hermans.
Thank you, Chair. I wish to move that the report be adopted.
Okay. Can we get a second to the adoption of the report?
Yeah, thank you, Chair.
Ms. Muatse, Chair.
Honorable Muatse.
Okay, I second the adoption of the report.
Okay. All right. Can we then actually check if ever there's any objection?
Ms. Yako, Chair.
Ms. Yako. Honorable Yako.
I think I want to, thank you, Chairperson. I think I want to reiterate once again what I said yesterday. I may have jumped the gun a bit. So basically, I'll be reiterating my sentiments from yesterday that we totally reject this report. As I said yesterday, I believe that this whole report and the budget plan is not radical. It's not speaking to the crisis that we're in now. It's not an innovative approach to fighting loss of jobs. It's not an innovative approach to seeing that infant industries and industries that are already suffering are kept at least at bay from loss of jobs, loss of revenue, especially since the economy is declining even as we speak in terms of across the board. So I think while we still don't have an approach to a state-owned company, when it comes to simple things like PPEs, then we can't really say that we're doing a lot as a department in order to change or to cushion the blow from what is happening right now. So mine is to say the EFF totally rejects this budget report, and we are against it. Thank you.
Okay. Can I actually invite Honorable Thring? Let me hear Honorable Thring, because you have actually raised the point earlier of item 5, I think. 6,
Chair.
It's item 6, yeah. Honorable Thring.
Yeah, Chair, I think that the ACDP was 5.6. Yeah, Chair. In terms of the report, the ACDP will abstain.
Okay. Can we then actually just Honorable Andre?
Mr. Mulder, Chair.
Okay, Honorable Mulder.
Thank you, Honorable Chair. I have engaged with the committee when we discussed the report previously, and I must just put on record that I have engaged with the Minister last Friday, as he indicated that he would contact me, and there will be further engagement, but for today, the Freedom Front Plus also rejects the report. Thank you, Chair.
Okay. All right. So can we then actually proceed?
Mr. Cuthbert, Chair. Mr. Cuthbert, Chair.
Cuthbert.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. The DA votes against this report as well. Please note it as such.
Okay. Okay, Secretariat.
Chair, in terms of the voting, Chair, I would assume that the majority party was in favor of adopting the report. We have the ACDP abstaining and the Freedom Front voting against, also abstaining, Chair, and the Freedom Front, not the Freedom Front Plus, the EFF voting against the adoption of the report. They're not abstaining. If I'm correct, they're not abstaining,
Yes.
or they.
Yes.
Ms. Yaku?
Yeah,
We-
understood.
Yeah, the EFF is rejecting the report outright.
Yeah,
Thank
so
you.
voting against adoption of the report,
Yes.
Chair.
Yeah.
So, Chair, then the majority have it, Chair, that the report is therefore adopted. I would assume if Mr. Cuthbert of speaking on behalf of Mr. McPherson, or Mr. McPherson didn't indicate his position, Chair.
Chairperson,
Yes.
Mr. Cuthbert.
that's on behalf of both of us.
Okay.
Fine, Chair. It's so noted, Chair.
Yeah.
We will also note,
Chair, just
Mr.
on a matter of procedure.
Yes, Thring, Honorable Thring.
Chair, on a matter of procedure, I don't know whether one member is allowed to vote on behalf of another.
Chair,
Yeah, if ever the member is not present, so it may be difficult to actually get the one voting for another. Andre, can I
Chair,
just check that?
Mr. Thring is correct. If Mr. Yeah, that you can't vote by proxy, I think. So, So procedurally, Mr. Cuthbert is raising his hand, Chair.
Okay, Honorable Thring, you will speak after Mr. Cuthbert. Cuthbert, can you take your comment?
Thank you very much, Chairperson. Chair, Mr. McPherson is on the meeting. As far as I'm aware, he's just got a very urgent call that he's on at the moment, and that's why he wasn't able to respond, but he is present in the meeting. So I've relayed the vote on behalf of the DA. Usually it's done as a party vote rather than individually. So that's why I have put it forward to the committee on his behalf as well.
Yeah.
Mr. Mbuyane, Chair.
Mbuyane?
Chairperson, thank you very much. I'm audible enough, Chair?
Yes, I can hear you. Thank you.
Yeah, Chairperson, one man, one vote in South Africa, the democratic country. Not voting for someone. One man, one vote, Chair. Thank you.
Okay. So can we then go back to Secretariat? Just
Chair,
in terms of report
The-
adoption.
the vote of only Mr. Cuthbert will be captured, Chair, because Mr. McPherson didn't indicate his vote. We understand the challenge that Mr. McPherson is facing, but as we are proceeding with the vote, Mr. Cuthbert will be the only one recorded, Chair. So then it will be only one DA member and the ACDP abstention, but the reference to 5.6 will be captured in the minute, Chair. Oh, Mr. McPherson is available.
Sorry, yeah, I just had to let someone in. I also too am voting against this report.
Okay. No, thank you very much. Okay. All right.
Chair, then the report.
Yes.
Then the Chair, the report is therefore adopted, Chair. 5 in favour, Chair. 2 abstentions, Chair, and 3 rejection, 3 against that, Chair.
Okay. Thank you very much. Can we then actually proceed to the next item? This one is concluded. Agreed to.
Yeah. Chair, the next item is the NLC process, Chair. Yesterday, if I may, Chair, should I continue or would you proceed?
Please,
okay.
Please continue.
Chair, yesterday we received a briefing from the Legal Counsel for Parliament about the opinion on the NLC, and at the conclusion of that committee concluded that they will request the NLC to submit a list of for beneficiaries to be tabled. There was a question of whether that list should include the 2019-2020 beneficiary list, and we consulted with the DTIC. We consulted with the DTIC chair that the matter that will form part of the annual report. Of the current annual report that will be tabled, Chair. Yeah. Mr. Cuthbert raised his hand, Chair.
Cuthbert.
Chair, I don't want to interject. Is Andre finished with what he was saying before I answer?
Cuthbert, you're on the floor, Cuthbert.
Okay, Chair, is Andre finished first? Then I'm going to.
Yes,
then
yes,
I'll.
you may.
Cuthbert,
Just
go ahead.
okay. Thank you very much, Chairperson. Chair, just two things. Number one, there was a bit of confusion around, the 2019-2021s, right, or 2020 list. However, the financial year actually ends on the 31st of March. So as long as there's a commitment from the DTRC that when the annual report comes, that information will be provided, then there shouldn't be an issue with that. But we would like that to be in writing so that we have it for reference. The second thing is, Chair, and I don't want to labor the point, but we received a presentation as our caucus from Parliament this morning, and we asked about the turnaround time on legal opinions, and we were informed that it should only take 7 days. So I would just like to point that out, and that if in future we do have this, that we stick to that particular deadline, because I was informed that the amount of time we were forced to wait was actually unacceptable. So I would like that to also be addressed, please.
So on the legal opinion, Andre, can you take the comment, because I see you are raising your hand?
Chair, I'm not going to comment on the legal opinion, Chair. I want to request that Margot just flight the issues that because I think at the end of today we'll probably write a letter to the NLC requesting them to submit the documentation, Chair. But I would like to ask Margot to flight the points that we have put in there, Chair, and members would be fine with what it is there, Chair.
Okay, take us through, Secretariat.
The issue that we will, in the letter that the Chair will write, is that the NLC should submit the following information within 7 days of receipt of the letter: the names of beneficiaries that receive funds from the NLC in response to the COVID-19 pandemic, as well as the amount received, the names of beneficiaries for the 2018-19 financial year as required by the Lotteries Act number 57 of 97, as well as the category under which this was received and the amount received. Margot? Can you go up, Margot?
Yeah.
Furthermore, the committee requests that the NLC publish the names of beneficiaries in its 2019-20 annual report as required in law.
Okay.
I think that
So
captures.
let me just, okay. All right. Thank you, Secretary. So I think that's what we have as our summary. And I'm sure that it's actually linked to the actual discussion we engaged on. If we can then actually agree and proceed.
Chair, we have Mr. McPherson and Mr. Cuthbert, Chair.
Okay.
So please can you flat that proposal again?
Oh, okay.
Can you just bring it back on the screen?
Yeah, we will.
Okay, great. So I'd like to make a couple of suggestions. The first one in the line, it should not be the NLC should. It should read as must submit the following information. Should is open to interpretation. Must is instructive. The second point that I would like to make is that that when one looks at the previous financial, the previous annual report for the 2018-2019, those beneficiaries were omitted from the annual report. Therefore, it would be my view that the annual report as tabled to Parliament was not compliant with the law, and in fact actually should be republished and resubmitted to Parliament to comply with the law, which would then include the beneficiaries. So I would actually, because as you know, colleagues, that the annual report is tabled to Parliament, and therefore it needs to be retabled to Parliament and needs to be sent to the committee again. So I just think from a legal and a procedural point, that the annual report should be republished and retabled to Parliament. Thank you.
Well, can I just check, McPherson, before you step off? Was it only the 2018-19 that didn't have the list?
That would be correct, Chair. So the annual report.
There were no other ones.
No. So the annual report then for that year, financial year, would then not have met the legal threshold, and in fact, what was now submitted to Parliament would not have been compliant with the law, and therefore should be resubmitted and retabled to Parliament.
Let's take comments, Cuthbert,
Ms. Cuthbert and then Mrs. Hermans, Chair.
and then Hammond.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Chairperson. Chairperson, just for number one, just to be 100% specific, I think we should word it as the name of the best beneficiaries that received funds from the NLC's COVID-19 relief fund worth 150 million rand.
So COVID-19 pandemic doesn't cover that.
No, it must be specifically, I think, the relief fund.
Okay.
Because that's what they called it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Precisely. And then, Chairperson, the second thing is I would like to also second Mr. McPherson's proposal of the retabling of the 2018-2019 annual report with the correct beneficiaries list in as per the law.
Let's
Mrs. Hermans, Chair.
Hermans.
Chair, I think let us get the actual amount that must go into number one. I don't have any problem with what we've inserted, that it's the relief fund. And I think to be totally correct, I think it's proactive, the proactive funding. But I think we must just check what it is that they reported to Parliament. There was another. Oh, I wanted to ask, the recommendation that was seconded from Honourable McPherson, that was seconded by Honourable Cuthbert around the retabling. Can we, I don't know if the Secretariat can advise us whether we need to resubmit the whole report or whether it can just be published as an addendum to the report. If we can get somebody who can advise us on that, unless we're saying that Mr. McPherson is our legal expert.
I'm happy to act, so if you would like.
That's above your pay grade.
Okay.
Well, we would have avoided 4 months of drama if we had.
Cuthbert McPherson, please, honourable members, can we just focus on issues? And
I've said nothing, Chair. I've got my hand up.
Well, you actually do have a lot that you're saying. Can I actually just check Secretariat? Yes.
Chair, if I may, I don't have the answer to that question as we speak, Chair. I will inquire to that, Chair. What we possibly could do, Chair, is to in the interim is to ask the information for the 2018-19, and as a rider to that, following that, is to, if it's possible, if it's legal, I'll inquire that the annual report, as Mr. McPherson indicates, is still published. So we don't wait for the republication, but we do get it in the information within 7 days. But let me also then just double check if that's. I don't foresee a problem, but I just want to verify that, Chair.
Yeah, Chair. But let me just check as well. If ever it's only the list of beneficiaries that was not included, why do we have to resubmit the report other than have a submission of the list which was not part of the annual report?
Chair, Mr. Cuthbert, Chair.
Cuthbert.
Chair, I want to speak to the issue of proactive funding. So if we limit ourselves to proactive funding, we're only going to receive the beneficiaries of 140 million rand. We're not going to get the entire disbursement from the NLC. So we must not include that provision because it will limit us in terms of the information that we receive. Therefore, we want all of the beneficiaries for the 2018-2019 financial year. Because remember, proactive funding is only where applications can't be made in advance and supporting documents and materials are provided after the fact. That's not what we want. We want everything, Chair. Otherwise, we're going to limit the scope of what we're able to fund.
So relief fund is bigger than proactive fund.
Yes, but relief fund is not proactive funding. This is entirely for the COVID-19 response. In terms of two, there would be two elements: the entire list and a proactive funding list. We need the entire list, not just the proactive funding list, Chairperson.
Okay.
Mr. McPherson, Chair.
Yes, let me just check because McPherson.
Thank you. I think it's important to remember that when the annual report is released, that all the beneficiaries are included in that annual report, not just proactive funding or non-proactive funding. And that's why it's absolutely critical that there is no room for maneuver, that it must be as we have received up until that point. Thank you.
Yeah. So I think maybe the point McPherson one was asking is that if you ask for risk when you're actually asking for additional information and as in beneficiary lists, do you actually have to ask for the list or ask for the submission of the whole report? Because on my part, I thought the issue is about the list, the beneficiary list that was not included.
Point of order, Chair.
Yes. Let's take Hammond.
Chair, you are now asking the proposer, and we had agreed that Secretariat will get that information.
Okay. No, that's fine. So can we then actually proceed with that summary as actually I was highlighted? But I think still we may need to look at what the size or what covers most in terms of the beneficiary list, or there might be actually a point where we may have to ask Secretariat to confirm that from what Cuthbert was raising. So maybe we can actually agree and proceed in terms of the flighted list of things we need to conclude as a committee. I'm sure the committee will agree to that. Andre?
Chair, it would appear that the 2017-18 list was also not published, Chair. So if that's the case, should we include that as part of the resolution, Chair?
Well, that was the point I was asking when there was emphasis on 18-19. And I was actually checking if ever that was the one or there was others before. From what you're saying, you're actually then responding to the question I've asked before. Yes. So I'm not sure then. I think maybe it may be correct to say list of the previous annual reports where the lists were not included. I think maybe basically we should do that. I think maybe then that sort of actually corrects the point I was trying to inquire. So it will be 17, 18. Andre?
Chair, Mr. Cuthbert wants to raise his hand, Chair.
Yeah. Chair, I agree with your proposal, all ones that are outstanding. So it should be 2018, 2019, 2017, 2018. But I think it must be drafted in an open-ended way in case anything else has been left out, and we should then receive all of that, Chairperson.
Yeah. Okay, Secretariat, I'm sure we have actually enough guidance at this stage to be able to actually see what are issues that are omitted. And in terms of the decision of the committee, based on the legal opinion we received, at least we know what are issues to be followed through. The issue will be just on the detail. Remember, when we spoke relief fund as well, we actually just wanted to make sure that it's actually a more balanced or complete kind of report we receive. So can we actually then say Secretariat will actually have to process, based on the discussion we had yesterday, the summary which we have before us in terms of making sure that the information is submitted to the committee. Secretariat?
Chair, can Margaret just flag it again, Chair? I would like to propose in a second over that, so we formalize it in the meeting, Chair. But we have to propose it to what Margaret is flagging and a second, and then we then move with that, Chair.
Okay. Margot, can you flag it?
Mr. McPherson, Chair, wants to raise his hand, Chair.
McPherson?
Sure, thanks, Chair. The DA would like to propose the following submission or the following as flattered on the screen. And then just secondly, I think it would be a wonderful thing for the chairperson to put out a media statement on this issue. I think it would be very, very good for the public to see.
Yeah. Can I just check that there's a move probably there's a mover at this stage. Andre? You said-
Chair, I'll just check now. There's a hand, Mr. Cuthbert's hand, Chair.
Okay. Cuthbert?
Chairperson, I would like to second that proposal, and with specific mention of the media statement, I think it's important that the public know that the Portfolio Committee has taken this decision and that we are requesting all of these reports and that we have taken this decision as a committee.
Chair, Mrs. Hermans, Chair.
Honorable Hermans? Hermans?
Thank you, Chair. I see that the amendment has been done to number 2, where we are saying that in the annual report as required by law, so that means all outstanding lists. So I think we can adopt it as is. I know it's already been seconded, but we support it.
Okay.
Chair, Mr. Thring, Chair.
Honorable Thring?
Chair, I don't have a problem with the recommendation as it stands, just that I think it needs to be fairly specific. It may be better to actually remove after relief fund point 1, after relief fund to the value of, and there's no amount of how much, but it should just maybe the names of the beneficiaries that receive funds from the NLC's COVID-19 relief fund. If we don't know what the value is, let's rather leave it out. Because the relief fund obviously does have a particular value.
Okay. So can I just say from the Secretariat with the members that have moved that, so I think what we got informed was that relief fund, it's all encompassing. And I think from what Honorable Thring is raising is that we remove the amount, read it as it is. And I think maybe one actually would then say, from what is actually on the relief fund, it's all encompassing. That's what we actually got informed about. But can we then actually proceed beyond that, Secretariat?
Chair, Mr. Cuthbert raised his hand, Chair.
Chair, my last point, and just to correct Mr. Thring, and I've sent this through to Andre, this is the advert that came from the NLC. Okay, it is 150 million rand, as mentioned earlier. And maybe if you want to attach this as an annexure to say that we want the information from this particular document that was shared by the NLC. Then that clarifies it all.
But shared by the NLCs to whom?
It was a public document, Chairperson. It was put on their website and on their Twitter account and all of that. I've sent it through. I'll send it to you as well.
So can I just say then, if you confirm, as we have confirmed earlier, that the relief fund is all encompassing, we're taking that the value is 150 million rands. So I'm just saying it's actually the agreement. The committee has agreed. We can then proceed from this one, unless maybe there are further comments. Honorable members, any further comments? I'm sure there's none.
No, Chair.
Yeah, if there's no further comments, can we actually then agree that the summary will be the conclusion of the committee on this matter? Just in passing, it might be actually quite important to actually note at this stage that members of the committee, one, didn't want to raise an issue of how we engage and discuss on issues as a portfolio committee, because in this particular issue particularly, there have been communication inside and outside of the committee. And in terms of the communication, I think it's a bit of a challenge when the committee hasn't had a proper space to engage, that we actually have parallel discussions by members. Can I ask that maybe if certain issue come up again, we should actually try as much as we can not to have our own communication outside as members and actually come back and have discussions at the committee as well, because it will actually dislocate or affect how the committee manage the process moving forward. I'm just raising that as the chair of the committee, because I'm sure on the issue that we are looking at, there are lots of other discussion outside the portfolio committee. Thank you very much. Can we take the next item on the agenda?
Chair, the next item is consideration of minutes, Chair. The minutes of the 19th of May, Chair. Margo can flag the minutes for us, Chair. The minutes for us, Chair.
Margo? Okay, the minutes of the 19th May, the agenda was actually presented, and there was actually the briefing by NCC. So members present, if you can scroll down, are listed there. Hopefully you're able to look at that as well, the different parties as well. To the last one, Inkatha Freedom Party, which was Cebe Khulu. There were apologies which were given as well, listed there. And there was actually attendance of the Competition Commission. And there was also the NCC. And there was the GTI attendance as well. You can scroll down, scroll further. Okay, the briefing were actually covered, and I won't go line by line. And then we actually had that briefing done by the National Consumer Commission, listed below. And there was actually issue relating to resolution in that meeting, where the committee resolved that the NCC would send a written response by Monday 25th, and the meeting did adjourn around 12 on the next meeting was the 22nd of May. So can I check if ever there's any comments by honorable members on the minutes? If ever there are no comments, can I ask that the members move the minutes for adoption?
Chair, Mrs. Hermans, Chair.
Chair, I move that the minutes be adopted as tabled.
Okay. Can we get a seconder?
Can I second, Chair?
Ms. Mutahung, Chair.
Mr. Mutahung, Honorable Mutahung, seconder. Is there any objection? No, if none, can we actually agree to the minutes? Can we take the next set, honorable members?
Chair, the next set of minutes is dated 10th of June, Chair.
10th of June, can we fly the first page? It was actual consideration of the Gauteng Western Cape oversight visit. There were also consideration of draft minutes. The list of those present is below, if you can scroll down. And then members can indicate if ever there's anything we didn't capture properly. There were apologies as well, which were from the members McPherson, Yako, and there was actually attendance by the department and attendance by the South African Bureau of Standards. So in the introduction, if you scroll down, there were issues cited or raised, and the consideration of the first draft of the Gauteng Western Cape oversight visit. There were actually conclusions on that. Proceed. If you can scroll down, because one actually did circulate the minutes. So in the conclusion, there were issues raised as well. If you can continue scrolling down, because I know the document was circulated to members. You can scroll down, then get to recommendation, which was actually the point which relates to Arts and Culture Minister. And there was actually further the point of consideration of draft minutes. If you scroll down further, I think obviously we're actually highlighting in that meeting that there were sets of minutes that were actually presented. And then there's under committee business. If you scroll down, we actually did have the adjournment of the meeting around 13:35. The next meeting was the 19th of June. Can I then check with members if ever they agree with the minutes before us, honorable members? Unmute, Andre.
Apologies, Mrs. Hermans, Chair.
Okay, Honorable Hermans. Unmute.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, Chair, I move that the minutes be adopted as tabled.
Okay, can we get the seconder?
Yes, Chair.
Ms. Muatse, Chair.
Honorable Mwatse,
Seconded.
thank you very much. Any objection? Can we actually take the next set, Andre, Secretary?
Chair, the next set of minutes is dated the 19th of June, Chair.
19th of June set is being flighted. The agenda items are listed. Members who attended below will be listed as well. Let's scroll down those present. You can scroll down the document. Margot. It's members who were present in the meeting. Can we scroll down? Margot. Can you scroll down the members present? So the screen is not moving now. Okay, members present. Yes, so I want to just, members present, and there was actually issue of attendance as well. Can you move to page 2? The introduction, there were issues highlighted. And then there's issue of briefing on beneficiation, which was second item. And there were actually issues raised under beneficiation. The third item, briefing by the DTI on localization. Issues were actually raised below that presentation. Then consideration of the fourth quarter financial and non-financial performance of DTI and EDD. It was actually listed there below. If you can continue scrolling down. Scrolling down in the conclusion with those issues highlighted, the formal consideration of the Gauteng Western Cape oversight visit. Can we proceed to committee business as the next item? If you can scroll down. There is actually issues that were raised there. The committee noted the matter considered the National Lotteries Commission was still pending and that it would be dealt with in the next meeting. The committee was updated and possible changes of the program based on the instruction received from the House of the chairperson responsible for committees. We adjourned the meeting at 12:10. The next meeting was on the 24th of June. Can we then get members to adopt the minutes?
Mrs. Hermans, Chairperson.
Honorable Hammonds.
I move that the minutes be adopted as tabled.
Can we get the seconder?
Chair,
Okay.
I second the minutes be adopted.
Ms. Mutahung, Chair.
Oh, Mutahung, thank you. Are there any objections? If there are none, can we then take the next set, Secretariat, of the minutes?
Chair, the next set of minutes is dated the 24th of June, Chair.
24th of June, can we actually have them flighted? If you can check with members, because those are the briefing we have, NRCS, SABS, and we did actually have the fourth quarter report, DTI and EDD. Members which were present are listed below. You can scroll down. And then we actually did have attendance of the DTIC and NTT in NRCS and SABS. We did actually cover issues on the introduction listed there. You can continue scrolling down. Scroll down. The SABS briefing, NRCS briefing on the turnaround strategy as well. And then we actually had the consideration of the performance in terms of DTI, EDD. And then there was a committee business that we actually had to look at with issues that were raised in that part. Can we then proceed, scroll down? We did actually adjourn the meeting at 12:10. Obviously, we will actually have the next set that we have to consider. We adjourned at about 12:10. Can we actually check with members if ever they're happy to accept the record as true reflection?
Chair, Mrs. Hermans, Chair.
Honorable Hammonds.
I move that the minutes be adopted as tabled, Chairperson.
Okay, can we have a seconder?
Chair.
Yes.
Mbuyane,
Ms. Mbuyane, Chair.
Honorable Mbuyane.
Yeah, Chair, I second that the minutes be adopted. Thank you very much.
Okay. Can we then actually check if ever there's any objection? Honorable members, I think we can actually say the minutes are agreed to. I'm sure that was the
One more.
one more. Yeah. Can we take the last set of the minutes?
Chair, minutes dated the 8th of July, Chair.
8th of July minutes. It was actually the briefing by Minister on the revised 2020-21 budget vote, strategic plan, and annual performance plan. The list of members which were present is before us. We scroll down to the bottom. And we did actually have attendance by the department minister and department and the different people who were listed below. On the introduction, we did actually have those comments, and there is consideration of the agenda. There were issues which were actually highlighted. If you can proceed to item 3 on the agenda. There was actually a briefing by the minister, and there was actually engagement by the committee. The meeting agenda about 14:45, and then I think the next meeting was the 15th of July 2020, as suggested. Can I actually ask members to talk to the record of the minutes? If
Chair,
it's
Mrs.
acceptable?
Hermans, Chair, and
Honorable
Mr. Chair.
Hermans?
Yes.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I move that the minutes be adopted as tabled.
What's it?
Thank you, Chair. I second the move of the adoption of the minutes.
Can we check if ever there's any objection? No objection. Can we then proceed to actually conclude? I'm sure those were the last set of minutes. Can I just say that there is no other item in the agenda as adopted earlier? So I'm sure we actually can conclude our meeting, and I can actually inform that the meeting is adjourned. Thank you very much, honorable members.
Safe journey home, Chair.
Thank you very much. I'm driving home now.
And
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chair.
Okay, great. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you, bye.
Bye.
Tenda, can we just hold on?
Okay.
I'm just trying to sort this out, man. You can.
you.